This is the Louie T Network.
Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T? Welcome to a Louie T Network exclusive breaking news. Told you I was going to have you covered when I dropped my head coaching carousel video that any head coaching hire that happens, you're going to hear about it here on the Louie T Network. And the first of the 6 vacancies has been filled. Jacksonville Jaguars make it official today. They promote interim head coach Doug Marrone from that exact title of interim head coach to permanent head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. They also make a couple of other moves, as you can see down below on the scroll. We'll talk about all those things here in explicit detail here in a second. But first, if you haven't already done so, please make sure that you subscribe to the Louie T Network on YouTube. We're changing the game over here. I want you to go ahead and help us do that by simply hitting the subscription button on YouTube and becoming a member of the Louie T Network. Also, I'm on Twitter at @InTheLabRoom is the Twitter handle. Go ahead and make sure that you follow me on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Go ahead, like the Facebook page. Don't forget, follow on Twitter, like the Facebook page, and also, most importantly, subscribe to the Louie T Network. Also, let's jump into this breakdown now. And I talked about 6 teams having vacancies and the Jags being one of the first to fill theirs. And they were one of the first teams to fire their coach. So they got a little bit of a sneak peek at what Doug Marrone was going to bring to the table. And the reason why I like this hire, and before we get into the specifics of Doug Marrone and what I think he brings to this Jacksonville Jaguars football team, also, Tom Coughlin, remember, he was sniffing around this job, but he's too damn old, really, if you ask me. You know, some guys can coach into their 70s and you're still comfortable with them holding that title, like Marv Levy did it once upon a time. And even Pete Carroll, a lot of people don't know this because he's so energetic. Pete Carroll's getting up there in age, man. But Pete Carroll has so much energy that you forget that he's like 60, what is he, like 66 or something like that, years old. So bottom line is Tom Coughlin looks his age and probably acts his age as well. So he needs to go up into the front office. So they gave him a football operations vice president job, and he got a 3-year deal, as did Doug Marrone. So both of those guys had 3-year contracts, and they extended general manager Dave Caldwell's extension out for another 2 years. So everybody's basically working on a 3-year deal. So it's kind of nice synchronicity there with everyone having the same amount of length in contract left. I absolutely love what Dave Caldwell has done with this Jacksonville Jaguars watch. So you can say what you want about Blake Bortles, and that pick may or may not have worked out. I think we all have our feelings as to whether Blake Bortles can play at a high enough level in this league. I'm going to continue to reserve judgment, even though my mind has somewhat been made up already. I'm still going to give him a chance under new head coach Doug Marrone because liked what I saw out of Blake late in the season, and they actually won a game with Blake playing some outstanding football. So I'm going to reserve judgment on Blake Bortles once again. We'll see what he does under new head coach Doug Marrone. But make no mistake about it. You say what you want about that selection and about the head coaching hire of Gus Bradley by Dave Caldwell. One thing you cannot dispute is that this team is talented. And that's all Dave Caldwell. He had to build this thing up from the ground up, and he's done that. This team is talented on both sides of the football. You can't talk about a team being young and talented and not mention the Jacksonville Jaguars. So one thing you can't say is that Dave Caldwell didn't do his job from a personnel standpoint. They've got talent. Now he's got to find the right guy to coach it up. Maybe Doug Marrone is or isn't that guy. We'll find out in due time. But Dave Caldwell deserved that 2-year extension. I think he's done a marvelous job in terms of acquiring talent for this Jacksonville Jaguars football team. And I think one more draft may put them in a position to really be dangerous in the AFC South. So I love the fact that Dave Caldwell is still there and still the guy pulling the triggers when it comes to selecting the players that will be suiting up for the Jacksonville Jaguars on Sundays for at least a few more years to come. You go to Tom Coughlin and his role before we get to the head coach and the meat and potatoes of what this hire actually means. You got Tom Coughlin coming in. as the football operations vice president, and all he's going to do is oversee a lot of the day-to-day operations of this football operation. Exactly what it sounds like. He's going to be that guy that's going to oversee everything. He's going to have input as to who they sign as players, and he's going to make sure that this machine runs smoothly in Jacksonville. And this is what they need. Remember, I told you, I didn't know if I necessarily agreed with Coughlin being a head coach, but I told you in Jacksonville, they need someone that is a stickler for attention to detail. They need someone that's a stickler for discipline. Tom Coughlin, all of those things. Remember the whole, if you're on time, you're late. If you're early, you're on time whole thing in New York. They need that in Jacksonville. Too many guys were doing things on their watch. Too many guys were picking up personal foul penalties and not giving a damn. Too many guys were doing things that hurt this Jacksonville Jaguars team and not helping it. That's where you need a coach who can put down their fist, or in this case, a guy like Tom Coughlin up as your football operations vice president that can come in and be a voice of reason to some of these young players and give them a little extra incentive to do what it is they need to do, or else I'll come down with the hammer on your ass. And they need that in Jacksonville. A lot of young players, blind leading the blind, not enough veteran leadership out there. So you've got the young boys trying to teach other young boys how to do it. That's the wrong way to go about it. Now you have a veteran presence in there in Tom Coughlin that can oversee this whole operation and make sure that it runs smoothly. So I like that hire as well. And he's a football lifer. He said, look, I can't stay at home with my wife. I can't do it. I've been doing this for too long. I need something to do. Now he has something to do. Let's see how he does in Jacksonville. Remember, he was the very first coach that this organization ever had in its expansion back in 1995. So Tom Coughlin, your new football operations vice president in Jacksonville, 3-year deal for him. Now let's talk about the main event here, the main attraction, your entree. Head coach Doug Marrone getting the nod in Jacksonville. He was the interim head coach after the Jaguars dismissed Gus Bradley after the Week 15 contest. They promptly then won in Week 16 in very convincing fashion, and then turned around and had a shot, was up 17-0 in Indy before blowing that lead and losing. But a lot of positive signs to finish up, and that's how you get a job. And if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, you need not look any further than across the field in the division at the Tennessee Titans to see what can happen when you make the right hire from an intern or interim head coach. The year prior, Tennessee did the exact same thing with their head coaching hire, and Mike Mularkey last year took over for Ken Whisenhunt, who was dismissed earlier in the season, and they liked what they saw out of Mike Mularkey, made him the permanent head coach. They win 9 games and almost win the AFC South division. So the Jaguars kind of looking at that blueprint there, saying, look, I think what this really more is about, though, is if you believe in quarterback Blake Bortles, if you believe in him as a player, as a quarterback, and you want to give him the best chance to succeed, he's running out of time and you're running out of rope with him. If you want to give him the best chance to succeed, you keep a guy that was already on the staff so the offense doesn't change, so the verbiage doesn't change, and that you can give him the best opportunity to succeed, similar to what they did in Tennessee. If you don't want to have Marcus Mariota learning a whole new playbook and all new verbiage and all of that good stuff, you keep a guy in-house, and it always helps that you have an offensive-minded guy that's been a head coach before that you can trust to get the job done. Same thing here with Doug Marrone. Has been a coach in this league before, offensive-minded, very sharp. They like that about him. And again, it's not a coincidence that Blake Bortles played 2 of his best games of the season at the very end when Doug Marrone was at the helm as the head coach. So it all makes sense. All right, so we're going to see what Doug Marrone does in this position with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I like the fact that they're keeping this continuity, which will give Blake Bortles the best opportunity to succeed. Will Blake get it done? I don't know. I told you I was a little encouraged. And remember, I've been killing and crucifying Blake Bortles all season long. You're getting to the point now where you need him to start being smarter with the football, making better decisions and better and more accurate throws. And he started to do that in those final 2 games of the season, like what I saw out of him. And it always helps when you can get a little bit of help from the run game. And they started to get that at the end of the season from Corey Grant, among others. So if they could get a semblance of run game, and that's why I think this first round pick, the 4th overall pick, if I'm the Jaguars, I'm taking a hard, long look because really I don't think they need anything. Like, it's funny. We're talking about like a 3-13 team here, or whatever the Jags were, 4-12, 3-13. Yet, I really honestly feel like their 4th overall selection is a luxury pick. Like, you can't look at their roster and say they definitely need to take one of these. Now, there's some things that they could use. They could use a dominant pass rusher. Definitely. I don't think that Dante Fowler Jr. is that guy. I love Yannick Ngakoue, what he did in year 1. And he could be that guy for you, but you could use an extra pass rusher. Why not? You could use another corner. Why not? Obviously, there's some positions that I think they could absolutely, and this is the position that I think they need to really be looking at closely. You need to take a running back. I really think they can upgrade that running back position. It would take so much pressure off of Blake Bortles. Maybe they need to upgrade the offensive line. I think that's something else they need to take a long, hard look at. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that the Jags better take X in the first round, I don't know if I buy that because they have just about everything they need to be good. Now it's just all about Doug Marrone getting all of these guys' asses in gear and getting them to play as one, on one accord, in unison with one another. And all of that comes, again, we're talking about young players, blind leading the blind. All that comes with more time together. Continuity and gelling together comes with time. And now these guys are going to be playing with each other. Some of them, this is their 3rd year playing together. Some of them, 2nd year playing together. It's going to help in the maturation process for this football team. And keeping a guy in-house that was here last year helps that process along. You're not totally blowing this thing up and starting all over, as we've seen with a number of different franchises. You're kind of continuing on the same path that you've been on, which is a positive for a Jacksonville Jaguars football team and franchise that needs to continue to build in the same direction. So I really like this hire. And more importantly, I like this hire because if Blake Bortles is not the guy, we're going to find out, irregardless of who the head coach is. Why not find out with a guy that has the same playbook, same verbiage, that has been working closely with Blake Bortles over the last year or so, that can try to fine-tune some of the things that he hasn't done well, that will give him the best opportunity to succeed so that you don't have to go and draft another quarterback. Let's hope that Marrone can get the most out of Bortles. If not, you're not going to have to tie yourself to him. You can move on and try over again. And so you're going to find out if Blake can get it done. And I think this is the guy that's going to give you the best opportunity to figure that out. So I'm on board with every single thing the Jaguars did today. All right, remember, breaking news, Jacksonville Jaguars hire Tom Coughlin as their football operations vice president, 3-year deal. Jaguars also hire a new head coach in Doug Marrone, promote him from interim head coach to permanent head coach, 3-year deal for Marrone as well, and also extend general manager Dave Caldwell 2 years more onto his deal, okay? And that guy, to me, has done a marvelous, fabulous job assembling this Jacksonville Jaguars roster. Now it's all about getting them to turn those players that they've done a great job of drafting, turn all of that success that they've had in the draft into wins on the football field. Let's get to some of your comments as to the hirings that the Jaguars have done today. We've got 5 vacancies left after the Jaguars make it official today with the hiring of Doug Marrone as their new head coach. Disco Jump Rope says, I don't know how to feel about this, man, to be honest. I get it. I understand that there may be some apprehension. He left Buffalo, wasn't all that great there, but I think Doug Marrone is the right man for the job right now. Again, if Blake Bortles is in fact the guy, you're going to find out because Doug Marrone is going to give you the best opportunity to figure that out. So I like the fact that you're keeping some of the continuity that you built with Gus Bradley. You're moving into that with a new head coach, but a guy that was on the staff. So I like this hire for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Brian Emerson says, damn Jags making some noise. And who would have ever guessed Coughlin would be vice president of football operations? I think that's a great hire. Again, I've been talking about the lack of discipline with this organization and the players on the field and all of that. It's a trickle-down effect. Don't think for 1 second that these players are just disorganized and not getting it done on the field from a mental standpoint because they're just reckless. It starts at the top. It's a mentality. The way the organization is run is going to trickle down to the coaching staff, which then trickles down to the players on the field. If you run a tight ship upstairs, it's going to trickle down to the coaching staff, which is going to crack the whip on those players, which is then going to yield a product that you can be proud of and put your name on Sundays. That wasn't the case with the Jacksonville Jaguars this year. I saw too many players going rogue and doing things that hurt the team, not help it during the course of this season. They need a presence like Tom Coughlin on this staff. And this is, I think, is a huge upgrade for the Jacksonville Jaguars for a team that is very young and needs some guidance and some discipline. Coughlin going to bring that to this organization. Looking at some more of your comments. We move down to my man Rarely Even says, Lou, I was scared spitless Mike Smith would take this job. He has connections to Jacksonville. I thought he was a shoo-in for this gig. I told you I don't think Mike Smith is going anywhere. I told you maybe next year. Okay, maybe next year when this when that young Buccaneers defense really starts to take shape and form, maybe then Mike Smith will be gone. But I think they're one more year away from really making enough noise to get Mike Smith a head coaching job. And so I told you I thought he was going to be safe for one more year. You're not out of the woods yet. There's still 5 gigs open. But this was the one, as you said so eloquently, this was the one that I thought if he was going to bolt Tampa Bay for, this was going to be it. And I told you I didn't think he would be the guy for the job this year. But next year, if the Buccaneers play the type of defense that they've played at stretches of this season, he'll be up for consideration come next year. Captain Spartan 04 says, really thought some defensive coordinator would jump on this job. And look, if you're the Jaguars, the next order of business is finding the right man for that exact job. You said you thought a defensive coordinator would jump on this job. They need to find, there are plenty, I've talked about this, all right, plenty of great defensive coordinators available on the streets right now. If you're Jacksonville, you need to go ahead and start figuring out who's going to fill out this staff. And none of those jobs that you're going to be looking to fill is going to be more important than that DC job in Jacksonville, because this is a defense that I think can carry this football team. I think they're that good, that talented on that side of the football. They need the right man cracking the whip over there. I would have loved to have seen Greg Williams get his hands on an aggressive, young, athletic defense like this. He's now in Cleveland, so that's not going to happen. They need to act fast because there are a lot of teams looking for new defensive coordinators as we speak. They need to go out there and get their hands on one of those guys and see if they can't turn this Jacksonville Jaguars defense from a good unit into an elite unit. The talent and the athleticism is definitely there. It is present. Now they just need the guy that can whip them into shape and get them to be a formidable defense for years to come. Bossaholic says, Sheed is a great owner. If he thinks Doug Marrone can fix Bortles, I trust him. They need a good DC that can discipline and get the most out of that D. I agree. I couldn't have said it any better. That's exact. I love Sheed Khan as an owner. I think he's done a fabulous job since taking over. He's exuded patience. He's allowed football guys to make football decisions. And I think nothing that has went wrong with the Jaguars is an indictment on him. He's done a great job thus far. And I think that Doug Marrone is going to give Blake Bortles the best opportunity to succeed. If Blake Bortles can't get it done under Marrone, then he's not going to make it as a starter in this league, and he's going to have to find work elsewhere as a backup. But until we get to that point, I think this is a really good hire, and we'll see what happens moving forward. I agree wholeheartedly with you, though, Bossaholic. I think that's a great comment there. The Black Al Bundy, what's going on, Black Al B? Says, sup, everybody, sup, Lou, what's good? He says, the Jags will continuously suck. The hell has Doug Marrone ever done that has guaranteed him another chance at coaching? Bortles could be the problem, but #bad hire. I get what you're saying. I mean, what he did in Buffalo, it didn't leave you wanting more necessarily, but this is a league full of retreads. You know this. Guys that you don't think should get another shot are going to get another shot, but guess what? Bill Belichick got another shot, okay? Pete Carroll got another shot. These are all coaches that were better the second, the third time around in the case of Pete Carroll, who had a job with the Jets and then the Patriots. Sometimes it takes 2 or 3 times to get it before you actually are the guy that you need to be to get the job done at a high level. And maybe for Doug Marrone, second time's a charm. Maybe this isn't. Maybe the third time's a charm for him. We won't know until we see. And again, time will tell us if that is in fact the case or not. And maybe Bortles is the problem. And with him still there as the starting quarterback, they won't fix anything. But again, time will tell us that. We will see. I like this hire, though. Your boss says, what is football ops VP? So all it is a guy that helps with the day-to-day operations of your organization from a football standpoint, making sure that everything runs smoothly. It's the behind-the-scenes things that we don't really talk about. He's going to have input, obviously, on some of the players, and he'll do a good job of keeping the scouts in line and keeping in contact with those guys, talking to some of these players and making sure that they're doing some of the things that they need to do. Again, football operations is exactly what it sounds like. Just operating on a day-to-day basis, having a guy kind of oversee all of the things that are going on within the organization. He kind of micromanages everything and oversees everything that's going on within this Jacksonville Jaguars organization. So it's not a specific job. It's not like he does one thing like a general manager where you can kind of tie in and talk about money and talk about the cap and players and all those things. Operations, a guy, a vice president of football operations, is kind of overseeing a lot of what's being done on a day-to-day basis. So he's handling a lot of those things. And again, it's not one specific job title in terms of what he's doing and something tangible that you can point to. But again, he's handling a number of different things that are happening. It's almost like a team president. You know, he's kind of overseeing the whole thing. And that's what Tom Coughlin will be doing for this Jacksonville Jaguars football team. Captain Spartan 04 says, who would be scarier with Jonathan Allen? I know you haven't watched any film specifically on him, but just curious, Bears or Jaguars? Obviously, to me, I think it would be the Jaguars just because they have so much talent around him. You know, with the Bears, I still think they're missing a few pieces to be elite, whereas with Jacksonville, if you stick a Jonathan Allen, and you're talking about the defensive lineman out of Alabama, who we will get to see tonight firsthand as the national championship game will be played, Clemson and Alabama. That should be a dandy, a rematch of last year. You don't get rematches in college football very often, so this is a lot of fun. But in any event, I think Jonathan Allen would be great for this Jacksonville Jaguars football team. But again, I think they could use a running back at number 4, not a defensive lineman. But again, best player available. If you're not sold on any running back at 4 as great value, I am not mad at you. And if Jonathan Allen is there, and he probably won't be because he's one of the best players in this entire draft class, if he's there at 4 and you get a chance to snag him and you feel good about him, I say, what the hell, man? Make the pick and turn this deep. I told you, if you're going to win immediately, if you're the Jaguars, it's probably going to be on the defensive side of football. So if you want to take another elite defensive football player, by all means, do that. Because if you can hold teams under 20 and give this offense a chance, that's going to probably be the Jaguars' best opportunity to win in the upcoming season and for years to come anyhow. So I would not be against that at all. Bossaholic says, this is not a splashy hire, but if the Jags win 10 games in the division next year, we'll be praising this guy. Exactly. It doesn't have to be splashy. You know, it doesn't have to be the most... When Mike Mularkey was hired by the Titans last year, was anybody jumping for joy? I remember Titans fans being pissed off with that hire. It wasn't splashy, it wasn't flashy, but damn it, it was gritty, and it helped them to get 9 W's this season and almost make the postseason. So it's not always the splashy hires that churn out the most dividends. Sometimes it's the guy that you don't expect to get the job that gets it and does the most with it. The Black Al Bundy says they still got shoelaces at running back out in Jacksonville. He's still there, but, I mean, you don't want him in. If he's in, then you've got a problem. You've got enough injuries that you're really hurting at that position. He's probably like a third-string running back in Jacksonville right now. Bossaholic says, Jags fans, trust Sheed. He knows what he's doing. I like Sheed Khan a lot. I really do. Black Al Bundy says, you make a good point with continuity. If the shit doesn't work, then you have to start looking at Bortles like, is he the guy? And we've talked about that already. And so I think that's what they're doing here is they're saying, okay, we're going to stick with the guy that has worked closely with Bortles already, that's going to keep the same playbook, same terminology, so we don't have to start over, so we don't have to question whether us changing the whole dynamics of the offense is why Blake Bortles is struggling. There's no excuse. If Bortles struggles again next year, he continues to make bad decisions with the football and continues to make poor throws and turns it over and doesn't complete a higher percentage of passes, then you know it's just Blake Bortles and we need to move on from him. So I think this kind of gives you the best chance to take a look at Blake Bortles as a whole and that offense and see if he's the right man for the job or not. Captain Spartan 04 says Jags need a fullback. Jalston Fowler helped the Titans a lot this year. Once they got a running back in Murray and Henry, Fowler was a key part in their success. I hear you, but also upgrading that offensive line was huge for them. They did a number on that offensive line and turned it around. They got Ben Jones from the Houston Texans. They got Jack Conklin in the draft at right tackle. Those things help. When you upgrade your offensive line, those things help as well. And so they got better up front. Then you stick in a fullback, and all of a sudden now those things work. You go out and get Murray, you go get Henry, and all of a sudden the running game is dominant. You still got to clean up your offensive line. As I said, that's something also the Jacksonville Jaguars need to take a look at in the offseason as well. My man Reese says, why did this happen so quickly, Lou? Did they just have their guys from the get-go? Not necessarily, but remember, interim head coach, he's already in office. He's already in-house. So if you talk to this guy and you get a good vibe from him, you see the job that he did at the end of last year, and then you interview him and he knocks your socks off with his approach and what he thinks should be the next way to go about running this Jacksonville Jaguars football team, and you like what he's saying and it makes sense, then you don't have to go out there looking at the rest of the crop of guys out there. You've heard all you need to hear. And again, when you're talking continuity, which is what this Jaguars team needs, and franchise for that matter needs, this is the guy that you're going to look to first. And if he does a great job in the interviewing process, which obviously Marrone must have done, then you should be set in hiring him. I think really what the whole thing was, let's figure out if we can get everybody on the same page. Let's talk to Coughlin, because remember, Coughlin wasn't a huge Blake Bortles guy. So maybe Marrone and Coughlin need to get in the same room with one another and discuss, okay, Coughlin comes in and says, look, I don't think Blake Bortles is the guy for the job. And maybe Marrone says, well, look, let me get a year with this kid, okay? I've been working with him the last couple of years. I think if I could fine-tune a couple of things, tweak things here and there, I could have something with Blake Bortles. And Dave Caldwell is in the room as well, and he's saying, look, I drafted this kid, so I want him to work. So give him another shot, and if it doesn't work, we'll allow you to help search out and seek out the next quarterback for this football team, and I'll have the final say if I'm Caldwell to figure out if that's the right guy for the job or not. So I think that's what this process was all about, getting Coughlin in there, getting everybody on the same page, one accord, and figuring out, can these guys coexist together? Do they all have the same mentality and the same kind of plan moving forward? Can we get all on one accord and figure out if we're all moving in the same direction? Because everyone needs to be in lockstep. When you're talking about the front office, you need everybody on the same page so that this thing can run smoothly. So I think it happened quickly because they already had their head coach in their mind. They just needed to figure out if Coughlin was going to be able to come on board in some capacity and everybody can mesh together. And once they figured that out, I think that's when they were able to go on and do what they did, which is make the hires and extend GM Dave Caldwell in the process. Rudy Art Pugh says, a terrible hire for numerous reasons, Louie. Obviously, as a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, you're going to have your reasons. I know Rudy Art Pugh and me and him have talked a number of times. He doesn't want Blake Bortles sticking around. And we already had talked, and he had already said, and he acknowledged the fact that Blake was going to get another year at least to be the Jacksonville Jaguars starting quarterback. Well, if that's the case, and you acknowledge that, and I did too, then why not hire a guy that's going to give him the best opportunity to succeed? Why not give him a chance with a guy that was coaching him already, with a guy that's going to have the same offense, with a guy that's going to continue what you've done the last couple of years, which is going to allow Blake to have the best opportunity to succeed? If he's not the guy, we'll find that out. We'll find that out. If he is, in fact, the guy, why not give him a chance to prove it with a guy that's going to give him a chance to prove it in the same offense, same verbiage? Everything is basically going to remain the same. So I understand your gripe, obviously, but Blake Bortles is going to be the quarterback. Why not give him a chance with a guy that was coaching him last year and they won a game with him? So give him a shot. Brian Emerson says, your thoughts on the Redskins defensive coordinator job and who's been interviewed? I'll talk about that at a later date of time. This is about the Jaguars. Don't really want to talk about the Redskins. I've got plenty of time to talk about the Redskins when they, in fact, do make a hire. I've already talked about that on another video, so if you want to hear my thoughts on the defensive coordinator position and what they should do there, go check that out. DG Production says, what is the best case scenario for the Jags next year? And is there enough talent to make the jump from trash to not trash? Absolutely. That's why the NFL is the best league in all of major American sports, because your team can be the laughingstock of the league one year and in the postseason the next. I mean, even though the Tennessee Titans didn't make the playoffs, just take a look at them. They're the perfect example and poster child for what I'm referring to. This team had the number 1 pick in the draft last year. They were 2-14, and they went 9-7 and almost won their division this year. If not for an injury to Marcus Mariota, they might very well have won their division this season. So that tells you all you need to know. I mean, you can be the worst team, and we see it all the time. From worst to first is what they call it. And it's a reason why we say that all the time, because it's so true in the NFL. You can be the worst team in your division one year, make a few changes, and be the first team in your division the next. So, yes, this Jaguars team, they have the talent. We've all acknowledged that there's enough talent here for this team to win football games. Now it's about getting them to play and win football games. Moving on, DG Production says, what's the deal with Tom Coughlin and what does he exactly do as a VP of football operations? I kind of explained that a little bit earlier. There's no set one thing that he does. He just oversees everything. And I think it's a great job for him because it allows him to have his hand in a number of different pots, especially overseeing the day-to-day operations. He's going to be in contact with these players quite a bit. And I think he can get into their ear a little bit and let them know, look, guys, you have to be disciplined on the football field. What you do in the meetings, in the practice room, on the practice field is going to transfer over to the football field. So you have to take these things seriously. You got to come in here and weight train. You got to come into the meetings early and on time. You got to get it done on the practice field so that it can transfer over to Sundays. And I think he's going to have his hand in some of everything that is going on in the organization. And like I said, it's not one set thing like a general manager where you can say, hey, cap, that's on the GM. Hey, player development, that's on the GM. Player and personnel, that's on the GM. With the football operations vice president, you've got your hand in so many different things. He's overseeing the total operation in Jacksonville, sort of like I said earlier, like a team president, so to speak. So he'll be overseeing everything that's going on with this Jacksonville Jaguars football team on a daily basis. It's a day-to-day football operations. He's going to be overseeing those things each and every single day. Big_Slim_2018 says they need some depth and quality depth players. And they're building that. As they continue to find these young players in the draft, they're going to continue to build depth. That is an issue with a team like Jacksonville. When you're not good, generally you're not good because you don't have a lot of depth. When your frontline guys go down, and it's a war of attrition every year, you're going to have players that go down and you lose them to injuries every year. You need players that can step in and there's not a huge drop-off. And when you're a bad football team, normally from starter to backup, there's a tremendous drop-off. And the closer you can get that gap and close it, the faster you'll be a better football team. And I think that's what the Jaguars are currently working on right now. DG Production says, never heard you explain it. It already sounds perfect for Tom. I like it. He says, never mind. I already heard you explain it. Got you. It's all good. Captain Spartan 04 says, I got what I wish for. The Chiefs and some Chiefs fans telling me Marcus Peters can cover Antonio Brown. LOL. Both times they played, AB roasted him. One time Landry was throwing. It's going to be a great matchup indeed. The Blackout Bundy says, at least Tom Coughlin gets to sit his ass in Florida and soak up that weather, LOL. That cat stays looking tanned as hell. So he's back where he needs to be to do exactly that. Slump TV says, I'm now almost certain that the Chargers will hire Mike Smith, shaking my head. We'll see. My man Reed, as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, little nervous that Mike Smith is going to get a job. He may get a job. We'll see. I thought that this would be the one that he would get, but if he goes to San Diego, it wouldn't shock me. But I don't think they're going to hire Mike Smith. We'll see. But Slump, you've always been in tune to the needs of your football team, and you're probably a little closer to the street than I am with the Chargers and what's going on with them right now in their coaching search. So maybe Mike Smith is a guy that's a front runner for that candidate. Izzy L says, Blake Bortles the guy. Is Blake Bortles the guy? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows the answer to that right now. I think that's the biggest question mark. After you filled the head coaching vacancy, which they've done today, I think the biggest question mark remaining and looming over this franchise is that exact question. Is Blake Bortles the guy? And I think we're going to find that out this year. I think this year will be very telling for Blake Bortles. If he can stay healthy and get through training camp with all of his guys out there, if they can't get it done this year, I think Blake Bortles will be the guy that they'll start to look at and say, you know what, you're the common denominator. You're the problem, and we must address this right now. So we'll see. DG Productions, he's trying to give me a lesson. I need it. He says his name is pronounced Shadi, like Shadi. Okay, thank you. Shadi, like Shadi. Thank you. I needed that. I appreciate that. I always thought I heard them call him Sheed, so I always called him Sheed. But if it's Shad, like Shoddy, then that's what I'll start calling him. I appreciate that. Rudy R. Pugh says, continuity on a 3-13 football team, preposterous, Louie. No, it's not. That's the thing. That's the misconception that everybody has when a team is bad. We need to blow it all up. That's how you stay bad. Continuity is something that, look, you're not going to be good overnight, all right? And I think a lot of the problems was Gus Bradley. He was just too damn nice, okay? You need a guy that's going to come in. I don't think, like, same thing in Buffalo. Rex Ryan was too damn nice. The players didn't fear him, all right? There's a line that you have to draw in the sand where your players, they can feel like they can come and talk to you and joke with you, but at the same time, they know I will get in your ass if you don't do what you're supposed to do. Rex Ryan was too friendly. That those players didn't respect him. I think it was the same thing in Jacksonville with Gus Bradley. Guys getting personal foul penalties, and they don't give a damn. You know why? Because Gus Bradley wasn't enough of a disciplinarian. They need someone to come in there and crack the whip. I'm not saying that necessarily Doug Marrone is that guy, but I think with Tom Coughlin on board, you get a little semblance of that. And I think that's what one of the biggest issues is. You don't need to blow this whole thing up. That's a misconception when something goes wrong with a franchise. You need to stay the course, actually. You just need to have someone else leading the charge, so to speak. And that's what they're doing in Jacksonville right now. They just need a different voice in that locker room. Gus Bradley's message became stale and it fell on deaf ears and no one was listening. So you get a new guy in there and you keep the direction going the same way because you don't want to blow this thing up. You don't turn it to the Cleveland Browns and have a new coach and a new GM and a new vice president of order operations every goddamn year. That's how you stay 1-15, barely winning a game, 2-14, 3-13 every goddamn year. And I know you said, well, damn, that's what the Jags have been doing, but it's been under the same coach. Now you get a fresh start and you've got talent. Unlike the Browns, who changed direction, so they're changing personnel and they're changing schemes and this, that, and the third. You got the same stuff here, and it's a lot of good stuff to have. I hear you, but I think this is the right thing to do. Rudy R. Pugh. Thrader says, do you think the Jags played a lot better under Marrone or not? I thought they did. I hated the fact that they lost week 17 to the Colts. When you're up big like that, you want to see them find a way to hold on to the lead, but they didn't. But they got to learn how to win. But it was good to see them be competitive. And they had Indy on the road. They won against Tennessee the week prior. So they're getting some things done in the division, being competitive. I like that. We'll see what happens with Doug Marrone moving forward. But I thought they did play better down the stretch under Doug Marrone the final 2 games of the season. Black Al Bundy says, if your Skins were to make Rex Ryan and DC fair or foul, I wouldn't have a problem with it at all. Like I said, I would prefer not to do that. But again, I've talked about that on the show where I talked about the Redskins firing Joe Barry and what they need to do. So I don't want to take up the Jags' time talking about the Redskins. Captain Spartan 4 says, so you got winning tonight. I want Bama to win, but I have a feeling it's going to be Clemson, which makes me sick to my stomach. I think Bama's going to win the game. Clemson gives them the biggest challenge. I don't think anyone else really threatens them. This is the one team that I think can actually beat them, and we'll see what happens. But I think Clemson is going to turn the football over, and I think that's going to be the difference. Alabama's going to win the game. Blackbird Blitz says, even if Bortles is not the guy, you still need a QB to replace him. Maybe the Jags are looking for a QB in the draft, and that's possible. You know, that's a possible scenario. I think if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars, you're drafting this high. I think you take a positional player, not a quarterback here. You basically what you're trying to get accomplished is you're trying to build the ultimate team around the one position that you may or may not have, and that's the quarterback position. So in your mind, you're thinking, all right, we got everything we need now for a guy to come in here and be successful, even if Blake Bortles isn't the guy. Sort of like what the Seahawks did. They built that football team to be successful if they could just find the right quarterback. That's why they went out and traded for Matt Flynn. When they figured out, hey, we might have the answer here in a rookie that we took in the 3rd round, in Russell Wilson, let's give him a shot. They did, and that team was already built. The defense was already stout and ready to rock and roll. They had a run game with Marshawn Lynch. They had a full complement of receivers with Golden Tate and company. All they needed was a guy to come in and man up the quarterback position. They found him, and that team was ready to rock and roll. In Jacksonville, you're looking to do the same thing. Let's stockpile that defense, have them ready to rock and roll. Let's get a good running back, and I think that's what the next big piece is offensively. Let's make sure the offensive line is solid. We got all these skill guys at receiver. We got tight ends for days. All right, we got everything we need. Let's make sure that we're in a position that if we don't have the quarterback that we need, we will get that guy. And if we do find that guy, the team is already built and ready to go. And they'll just take off running from that point on. The Black Owl Bunny says, you doing a video recap of the college football chip tonight? I thought about it. I don't think so because I'm not a college football guy. So I don't want to sit up here and try to act as if I am. But I did think about it. It did cross my mind. Big_Slim_2018 says, who you got tonight's game? I got Bama. I think Bama's going to force some turnovers, and that's going to be the difference in the game. Clemson is talented enough to beat them, but I think when it's all said and done, Clemson has turned it over this season, and I think they're going to turn it over again tonight, and it's going to cost them against a Bama team that is a lot more careful with the football than, say, Ohio State or any of the other teams that they've played this season to get them to this point. Reese says, I think TJ Yeldon can be something special if they give him something to work with, Lou. I think he's a third down back and a third down back alone, a change of pace guy. Not a guy you want to feature. He's already proven that he can't stay healthy, and I just don't think he's the guy you want in between the tackles. I think he's a really solid back, and I think he could be a nice change of pace, but I don't think he's a lead back in the NFL. DG Production says, hey, man, what in the hell is the deal with the college football? It's so stale, same teams year after year. I mean, you could say the same thing about the NFL. I mean, it's the Patriots every year. It's the Steelers every year in the AFC. It's the Broncos when they're good in the NFC. I mean, you see the Cowboys up there as the number 1 seed, but it's the Packers every year. I mean, you could say the same thing about the NFL or any sport for that matter. The good teams are going to find a way to get it done. The cream always rises to the top. All right, so in college football, it's the same way. The best teams are going to get the best recruits, and they're going to be good. That's how it goes. So that's what the deal is with college football. RG3 hashtag smoking at 3 hashtag 1000 says, I think the Jags need to focus on offense in the draft. I think they need a running back. That if I'm the Jaguars, that's the position that I think can help Blake Bortles in his progress the most. A really good running game could take the pressure off of Bortles and allow him to manage the game a little bit more instead of feeling like he needs to go out and win the game for the Jaguars. Larry G's the best says, I agree with the Jags GM getting a 2-year extension. Blake and Ramsey isn't a bad pick. Ramsey, he looks legit at the cornerback position. I think this roster has been assembled beautifully by Dave Caldwell. Captain Spartan 4 says, you should do a recap of tonight. I don't know. I might. I don't know if I'm going to do it or not. I agree. This is from Blackbird Blitz. He says, I agree. Tom is perfect given his reputation. All players and coaches have been put on notice with this hire. And I feel like that's exactly why he's there, to bring a little stability and discipline to this organization. Reese says, I hear you about Marrone, Lou. I just thought they'd want to do their due diligence with their candidates. Absolutely. I get where you're coming from. Black Owl B says, do you foresee any future hires coming from the teams left in the playoffs if their teams happen to lose? Absolutely. You know, there are always teams waiting to interview coordinators and things of that nature, but you want to wait until either they're eliminated or they have a week off. So we'll see what happens. Like, for instance, Kyle Shanahan, they had a week off, so he was able to interview with Jacksonville. And obviously you see what direction they ended up going in. But that's how it goes. You got to wait because they got a job to do. You know, they've got something that they have to take care of right now. So we'll see what happens. Peyton Manning, hashtag Pay Breezy, hashtag Slim Peyton says, I think the Jags have the most talent in the NFL, but not getting anywhere. I hope Marrone can turn it around. And that's the thought process. That's the hope, is that with all this talent, you get the right guy as your coach, and you can start moving in the right direction. Nick Rocker says, do you think the Jets need most a guy like Jabril Peppers at safety or Derek Barnett as an edge rusher? Jets need pressure. They don't need another safety. They got one in Calvin Pryor, and it'd be nice to have a tandem, but I don't think Jabril Peppers is as good as everybody thinks he is. I think a guy like Derek Barnett would be exactly what the Jets could use because they need more pressure on the quarterback. Peyton Manning, hashtag Pay Breezy, hashtag Slim Peyton says, who's the best draft pick the Jags have since from 2010 to 2015? It's hard to say. They've had a number of them. Telvin Smith has been really good for them. The receiver, Allen Robinson, has been really good. When he's on, he's one of the better receivers in the league. Obviously, they've done some good things over the last couple of drafts, whether you're talking about a gem in the third round with Yannick Ngakoue, or you're talking about their first-round pick, Jalen Ramsey, a season ago. They've done a really good job in the draft. They've done a good job. If you're going to be bad, then you need to get good players, and they've done that over the last couple of years. DG Production says, Lou, who do you think AR-12 will have mercy? Do you think he will have mercy on the Cowboys? Absolutely no mercy, but can they stop the Cowboys' offense is the bigger question. Remember, they didn't stop the Cowboys' offense the first time around, and the Cowboys' defense actually did a number on Rodgers, which I don't see them doing this time, but I still think that Cowboys' offense is really dangerous. And final question, DG Production says, I hope Cal stays and Matt because Matt has a really good connection with him. He's not staying. He's going to get a job. Now, the question is, does the Falcons stay into the playoffs to the point where teams get tired of waiting to be able to interview him and they move on and make a move, and then the jobs that are remaining, say the Rams and the 49ers, he doesn't want any part of those jobs. That could happen, but if there's a job out there like Denver where he's very intrigued and interested with, I just don't see this guy coming back to Atlanta next year. He's due for a head coaching job. He's been a hot name over the last 2 or 3 years, and I think he's ready to pounce on an opportunity this year. So, in any event, that's going to do it for the Jacksonville Jaguars as they make it official today, hiring Tom Coughlin as their football operations VP, also hiring head coach Doug Marrone on a permanent basis, elevating him from interim head coach. Both of those guys get 3-year deals. Terms of conditions aren't disclosed at this time. And also 2-year extension for general manager Dave Caldwell. He deserves it. This is a talented Jacksonville Jaguars football team with a ton of cap space still available. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here on the Louie T Network. I told you, as these coaching hires happen, come here as we will break it all down and discuss. Jaguars find their new head man in interim coach, promoted to permanent head coach Doug Marrone. Make sure that you subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Also, at In the Lab Room on Twitter. Make sure you follow me there. And also, I'm on Facebook. In the Lab Room is the Facebook page. Like the Facebook page. That's going to do it for me. Enjoy the national championship game tonight. I doubt I do anything special for it, but maybe the spirit hits me and I do. We'll see. In any event, enjoy the game. You know I will. Have a good one. I'll see you later on in the week. If anything else happens, you'll see this face again. Remember, we're changing the game one live feed at a time. See you next time. I'm out.